All right, welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the first thing in TactileView, or the first toolbar in TactileView. And I call this a quick access toolbar, mostly because it's made up of items that, for the most part, there's going to be some exceptions to this, but most part, things that I consider items you want quick access to, things like open, save, copy, cut, paste, that kind of stuff. So now you're going to notice that this top toolbar, and I say toolbar, it kind of sort of is actually two toolbars, and they are stacked up one on top of the other. If you want to, you do not have to do this. It's actually kind of half pointless, but I'm going to do it anyway. Is you can drag that bottom toolbar over and line it up to the side, and so all your toolbars are out in a straight line. If you close TactileView, it's kind of reset that for you, which is the kind of slightly pointless part of things. But you can do it if you'd like to. The OCD in me likes it to be one nice long straight toolbar, and so I'm going to do that. It also gives us a slightly more cohesive way to go through this. But anyway, you will find when you open up TactileView, your toolbars will be stacked one on top of another, and that is perfectly normal. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in here. So starting with our first icon, we have an icon that looks kind of like a little white piece of paper with a folded corner in the top right. This is going to be Open Document. Or excuse me, not open document, create new document or new blank document. You can also find all these quick access items. I'm just going to show you this super quick. You can also find these through the menu systems. For example, our first couple icons are create a new document, are open a document, and save a document. If we go to file, you have file new, file open, and file save. You also have keyboard shortcuts, which are pretty standard. Control N for new, Control O for open, Control S for save. So you could use keyboard shortcuts, the kind of quick access bar, or the file menus. It really doesn't matter. I'm just showing off that again. You can find all of these items through the menu systems or do them other ways. They are just here for quick access to them. So like I said, that first icon there, a little white page with a folded corner, is create new blank document. The next one, represented by kind of like the classic manila folder envelope thing with a little green arrow kind of in an opening fashion, is to open a file. So if you have a saved file that you would like to open up inside here and use, you can open this and it'll let you browse your computer, choose that file, and open it up inside here. Primarily, that's going to be for opening up, files that you've created and saved from TactileView, which will be a TactileView specific file format. But alternatively, you can also open up JPEGs or PNGs, image files, and bring in an image right into TactileView that way as well. Now, I'm a little bit later off, I'm also going to show off the import image option, and that's going to be in a later episode. But that is another way to bring in images. The main difference would be if you open up an image with the file open, or the open button here, it's going to open up any image you choose into a blank new document. As where if you use the import image tool, which again, covering that a little bit later on in a different episode, that would import an image into your existing document. So just keep that in mind. If you had a document that you already kind of created some of like a, maybe you titled it and put in some text or something, and you wanted to insert an image right into that, and you went to file and open, it's going to open it in a new document, not in your existing one. You would want to use the import picture for that. Again, join us for future episodes for more on that. Moving on here, we have our floppy disk icon for our save. How we are in 2024, and we still use a floppy disk for a save icon, I don't know, but here we are. I digress. I'll leave it at that. Actually, I say that there is one thing, or a couple things, I should say, in the save icon that I would like to cover, and it's the saving process, because this rolls over partially into our next icon after the save icon, which is the little icon that looks like three books stacked next to each other. And this is TactileView's online catalog of tactile graphics. And there is some rollover or crossover with saving. And actually, it makes the saving a tiny bit confusing. So I think we should probably explain that real quick before we move on. I'm going to click on the Save button. And what it's going to do is it's first going to say, ask me to give it a title. Now, by default, the title is title. Whoop-de-doo, right? We can change this to whatever we want. I'll call mine Test for just a little example here. And then I hit OK. Next, it says, okay, where do you want to save said test file? And it lets you browse your computer. I'll just go to my documents. That would be fine. It gives it a default name, which is going to be TactileView 1, 2, 3, etc. .bpx, which is the file extension proprietary to TactileView. So if you want that to be something other than TactileView 1, you can change that there. And then you can hit the Save button. And now this is the part that's confusing, is we get one final window that you do have to get through in order for the finishing or to save, for the saving to be completed. And this is a window that says document details for use in catalog. And it says, do you want this document to be saved and added to the catalog? And blah, 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 blah. A whole bunch of other stuff. And you might be like, what's this catalog thing? I was just trying to save. Like, I just hit the save button. What happened? Like, why is it asking me this? And this has to do with, again, that next feature we're going to talk about in a little more detail in a minute too, which is TactileView's online tactile graphics catalog. This catalog is basically a whole bunch, there's actually thousands of them, of tactile graphics that are available free it's like a tactile graphics database, if you will, that is free and available for anybody who has TactileView to use and access and download and use any of those graphics up there. We'll take a peek at that again in just a second. But what's neat about that catalog is that it is a collaborative catalog, meaning that you can share your own documents you've created and make that catalog of tactile graphics bigger and more useful, and it's just going to grow and get bigger and better over time. So this part of the saving process is where you could choose to upload and add your tactile graphics that you created to said catalog. Now, you are not required to, but it's going to basically ask you every time, which is a tiny bit annoying. But in the same breath, that's how they're getting all these new tactile graphics. So if you did want to, add this online to the tactile graphics catalog, you could give it your name and your email address, and it would give you basically credit as the author of said graphic. You can also give it a little bit of a description down below that, or again, if you have no intention of doing any of this, you can leave all that blank, of course. And at the bottom, we have three options. The first one is add a catalog. The second one is save document details. And the third is abort catalog edition. And you might be like, how do I just save? I just want to save. I don't want to upload this to the catalog, none of that kind of nonsense. How do I just save? That is going to be the save document details button, the middle out of the three. If you did want to share this and add to the catalog, that would be your first button, add to catalog. That would save it and upload it to the catalog, again, which would give other people free access to it. Again, save document details would save it to your computer without any added addition to the catalog. That is the one you're probably going to want to use the most of the time. And the third one is abort catalog edition, which really should just be a cancel button, honestly, because that's what it's doing. It's canceling the catalog thing, but it's also canceling your save. So don't feel like if you hit abort catalog edition that it's still going to save to your computer. You must hit save document details for it to actually finish saving that file to your computer. So I will do that one, save document details, which will save, in this case, my blank document that literally just has a title that says test to my desktop. If I minimize this really quick, we will see that there on my desktop. I'll open this back up. Okay, that is saving and hopefully getting through some of the confusion about saving. Next, and you even see that even just minimizing and bringing it back up, my toolbars rearrange themselves. Again, I'm going to just indulge in my little bit of OCD here and drag that back out into a straight line. Do whatever you'd like. It's going to reset on you every time. Anywho, moving on here, we have that next thing, which is the catalog itself. Again, represented by a little icon that looks like three books stacked next to each other. If I click on this, it's going to open it up, and it opens it up on a little online portal. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a touch. It is kind of small. There we go. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Come on. There we go. That's at least a little better. Okay. So this says TactileView catalog, right? It says it gives you your version that you're on. Lets you search by keyword if you want to, or even part of a word, or choose a category. And there is a spot right near the top that says designs, and in brackets, currently mine says 4,785. That means that's how many tactile graphics are available for you to choose from. That's a borderline overwhelming amount. But thankfully, again, you can keyword search these, or you can go search by kind of category as well. So if we scroll down, they have either a drop-down menu to choose a category, or they also have just clickable categories with kind of some little icons to give you a little tiny glimpse, I guess. Like there's animals, architecture, art, astronomy, biology, fantasy, games, history, movies, maps, literature, music, science, tourism, world culture, youth, and that's just kind of skimming through. There's more than that even. So there's all these different categories, and if you click on one of these categories, it even breaks it down even further for you. So I'll try biology, since that's probably a pretty common one, for especially for education. So if I click on biology, we have 13 different categories in here. We have animal anatomy, we have blood circulation, we have cell division, we have the central nervous system, digestive system, food chain, genetics, and just to name a few. So I'll take a peek at cell division, because that's a pretty common one that comes up for a lot of folks. And so here there is a whole bunch of different, and actually many of these are quite nice. And so I could just choose one that is at least close or similar to where, well, the one that we are trying to do or is trying to create, or steal one of these as a starting point possibly, and then modify it further. Any of these that you want to use, I'm going to choose this one right here because I like the look of it. It looks to me like it's the cell that is like in the process of dividing, right? So it's breaking into two. All I did was click on that, and it took a moment, and it downloaded it and opened it right up inside TactileView for me. Now, one thing you may kind of want to, or I guess just a word of caution here, is this is an international database of tactile graphics. So oftentimes the graphic itself is usable by anybody in any language, but you may find that some of the braille labels, in this case it's basically just the title, is in a different language, and you very well may want to delete and change that and add your own braille labels to it. Again, this can still be touched up. Like we grab our eraser tool, our pen tool, and come in here and modify this, erase it, change it. We can move and scale it. Again, stay tuned to further episodes on how to use all those other tools to do such things. Anyway, but I just want to show off this Tactile Graphics catalog, because if you're looking for at least a starting point for your tactile graphic, this is a wonderful place to go. And again, if you've created something that you think other people might use, please feel free to upload that on there, so that way this catalog just grows and gets more useful and more powerful over time. It's already powerful and useful, but it's just going to get better. All right, so we'll leave it at that. I'm going to go ahead and close out that cell division one because I don't really need it, and we're going to move on. The next item on here is going to be a compose map tool, and so this kind of has a little icon that looks a little bit like a little tiny snippet of a map, basically. If we choose this here, again, it hops you online through a little web portal on the TactileView's website. And here we can change our paper size, so if you want 11.5 by 11 or letter or whatever we're working with. And then it also says you can choose your units of measurement. So here being in the US, we would want imperial, which would be yards, inches, and miles. We wouldn't want kilometers and stuff like that. And then down below, you can kind of choose the scope of map that you want. And starting from as big as the world, going down to continent, even to country, to province, or which would be like a state level, city, or even to street level. And so we can choose here, and then based off what you chose, like say if we chose a continent, for example, it would say, okay, which continent do you want? If we chose a city, it would say, okay, what state and city do you want? And if we chose a street, it would even have you put in your street address. And then it will bring up basically a simplified version of kind of what looks a little bit like Google Maps, honestly. I know they're using a different source besides Google Maps, but it's going to look sort of like that. Then you can save that and open it directly into TactileView. I do find that I do find that the maps sometimes have a little extra more kind of map detail than I want, and so sometimes I feel like a little bit of cleanup is necessary with this tool. But again, it's a really great starting point to get you kind of going with your map, depending on what you're looking for. You could also, again, with either the Tactile Graphics catalog or the Compose map tool, if you had an image on your computer, you can also just import an image of a map or import an image of any basically graphic you want as a starting place as well. Again, stay tuned for future episodes for more on how to bring in images and things like that. All right, our next couple icons here are the first one is going to be a little icon that looks sort of like a flatbed scanner with the lids partially open. And that would be if you want to scan in a graphic or an image that you want to bring in here via a scanner. And so you could do that if you have a scanner. Next one is you could bring in an image via like a webcam or document camera. Take a picture of it and bring it in. After that, we have buttons for undo, button for delete, button for cut, copy, paste, and alt right click. Now, of course, these are all things that we're pretty used to keyboard shortcuts for. I honestly don't know why we have clickable quick access buttons on those, because most everybody knows like cut is Control X, and Control C is copy, and Control V is paste, and Control Z is undo. Anyway, I guess if you didn't know that, it'd be nice to have maybe like an undo button, maybe a delete button, and stuff like that. So they've given you all those buttons up there. So that's what we got. Moving on, we have a little icon that looks like a printer, and this would be if you want to print. Of course, you can also go to File and then Print. You can also press Control P, like are pretty standard with any other program. All of those work. That would be to do a print and send it off to your Pearl printer. Or it could be a print printer too, and then you can run it through a thermoform machine as well. That's an option. After that, we have kind of a little icon that looks kind of like a little white piece of paper, again with the top right corner folded, but this one has a little overlay magnifying glass. And this one is going to be for a print preview. This will show you a Braille accurate rendering of how your document is going to emboss before, of course, actually embossing. Now this feature, truthfully, has been rendered a little bit redundant with a newer feature they've added in the last couple of years called Dot View. We're going to get to Dot View because it is a little further down on our quick access ribbon. I actually prefer using Dot View, but basically it's also giving you a Braille accurate rendering before you emboss as well. So you can use either or though of those features, either the print preview or the Dot View, whichever you prefer to kind of see your graphic and how it would be created if it was Braille dots, and that will be how it embosses out on your embosser. Both are, when I say Braille accurate, I should more say like embosser accurate, if you will, because not every embosser creates graphics the same way in the same style. And this, both the print preview and the Dot View feature, both take into consideration what your embosser model is, what your embosser's tactile graphics capabilities are, and gives you an accurate rendering based off of that as well. So they are actually accurate to the embosser you have chosen, and that would be the embosser you have chosen under File and then Print Setup, which is, again, we went through in the previous episode during the configuration wizard as well. Anyway, next icon here is kind of a little yellow square thing with kind of what looks like, almost looks like a Wi-Fi symbol, truthfully. But this is a link to their website blog, in case you want to hop online and look at their blog on their website and check that out. The next icon is the little TactileView logo, and this is about TactileView, give you information about your version, your software license number, etc. After that, and this is getting into what would be the first icon on the second, or the stacked toolbar. Remember, I drug mine out, and so mine are all in a straight line, but by default, this second kind of toolbar will be tucked underneath the first one we just went through. So again, if my order seems a little bit different, because again, I click and drug mine out to make it nice and one long straight one, basically. But this is the first part of the second stack, I guess, if you will. Anyway, you guys understand, so I'm going to move on here. So this first icon here, it looks like a kind of little piece of paper, again, symbol, but with a light bulb on it. This would be to open up some TactileView examples if you want to just emboss an example file. If we open this up, we have a few like Big Dipper, blood circulation, Eiffel Tower, Mediterranean Sea, a maze, Olympic rings. Anyway, there's even more than that. I'll just kind of naming a few through there. So you can open up any of those and emboss them out if you just kind of want to check out a preview of it. Next is property designs. This can open up, well, some properties for your design. These are things we're going to kind of cover throughout the rest of the episodes anyway, so I'm really going to skip over that more than anything else right now. After that, we have Braille tables. Now, Braille tables, again, is something that we did choose all this stuff during the configuration wizard in the previous episode, so if you've not done that, do recommend you go back and check that out. However, if you need to choose your primary Braille table, or if you want more than one Braille language or Braille code, or contraction, uncontracted versus contracted. If you want a mix of any of those, languages, tables, whatever, you can also use this tool here to change on the fly to a different Braille code or different Braille language or something, if you wanted to intermix those. So if we click on this Braille icon, it brings up our Braille table selection tool, just like we went through in the configuration wizard, and we could choose a different one. I've got mine set to English Unified Grade 2, which I'm happy with for basically all I'm doing. But if you needed to, say, have a mix of English and Spanish, or have a mix of contracted and uncontracted, or something like that, you could do that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on that. But that is that little Braille icon right there. Next is language, and this changes the language for your entire interface. I almost feel like it's a little bit of a dangerous one to have on the quick access icon, because you probably don't want to be doing that too terribly much on the fly, but that's what it is. You can come click on this and you can choose your different languages and stuff like that. Alright, next is page formatting. So this is represented by a little icon that looks like, again, like a white piece of paper with a little ruler on it. If we click on this, we have a few different options, 4 to be exact. The top one, if applicable, will let you change the orientation of your paper. So if you're using like letter, for example, you might want to turn it landscape and emboss landscape. You can do that here. The next one is going to let you change your paper size, margin, etc. So if we open this up, it opens up a whole window here. You can choose our paper size, our width, our height. If we want to do a custom one, you can do paper margins. Honestly, the defaults are virtually always fine for me for this, other than maybe changing your paper size, but you can also do that through the print setup menu as well. So anyway, I usually leave that set to default. And that, yeah, that's it. After that, we have a couple different alignment frames as well. Basically, these are just things to kind of help you, like with margins and stuff like that. You can, if you've chosen margins on your document, you can have that represented by like a little dotted line going around the edge. It's like, hey, this is where your margin is. Don't design over that, otherwise you're going to, cross your margin, kind of thing. Anyway, those are just some alignment frames for that kind of stuff. Next is our screen elements, and this is represented by, again, a little like white paper icon, but this one's got kind of like some reading glasses like overlaid on top of it. If we click on this, we have 2 different items in here. I'm going to cover the bottom, or the second one, first, because this has to do with object layering or stacking. So this is going to be something we will get into more detail on in future episodes, where we do some stacking of different, or layering of stuff. But basically, if you have 2 different drawing pieces or things in your drawing, and you have them layered or stacked on top of each other, this will show, if you click on this, it will number those for you to show you where each one is in the layering order. So say you had a circle and a square, and the one was on top of the other. And you're like, okay, maybe I got some other things on there as well. You want to know which ones in what order in the layer if you want to rearrange it. Most of the time, not necessarily very helpful, and that's why it's off by default. But you can click on this to add basically little numbers next to each one of your different drawing elements that you've put into your graphics to help you know where each item is in its layering. So, 1 being on top, 2 being below, 3 being below 2, so on and so forth. Okay, next is the top icon, and I saved this one for last because we're going to go into a little bit more detail on this, and this has to do with how labels and text and things like that appear on your screen. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and we're going to look at a Braille label here, which is just my title currently. My title is test, I know it's super creative, but anyway, so test right now, how I have it right now here, you will notice that it visually is in both Braille and in print. I have my Braille T, a Braille E, Braille and ST contraction since I have contracted Braille, but behind it there is a printed TE and an ST. So I'm seeing both the Braille and the print. And so that is what these first item on the screen elements option is. If we open this up, we can say hide the Braille or hide the text. So if we want to just see the Braille, we can hide the text, or if we want to just see the text, not the Braille, we can hide the Braille. At the end of the day, whichever one you choose, when you print this out on your Braille embosser, even though you might be viewing it in print, or you might be viewing it in Braille, or you might be viewing it in Braille and in print, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's going to just print it out in just Braille labels. The text is really just on screen to be helpful for sight reading purposes. But you can hide that if you don't like one or the other. And then you can basically have it show the text part in larger font if you wanted to. And you could also change the color for the text part as well if you wanted to. By default, that is green. And that is our on-screen element stuff. The next 2 things are grid types. So the first one, if I click on this, it's represented by kind of a little page with a light green grid, and there's a kind of a Braille, like a full Braille cell in one of the grid boxes on it, on the icon. When I click on this, you will notice that it pops up, and this is very faint. I hope this actually comes across in the YouTube video, but it's quite faint. But I have what appear to be a grid of vertical rectangles, so they are taller than they are wide, and it's a whole bunch of those, and each of these rectangles is the size of one full Braille cell, and they have little kind of numbers to help you count along the top, how many characters that is. And so this is a grid pattern, or an alignment grid, simply that is based off of the cell size of a full Braille cell, just to help you keep things lined up. Again, it's showing on the screen very faintly in green. There is a solid lines every braille cell with kind of a dotted line every 5 braille cells, just kind of for the sake of helping you visually count those if you're trying to count around. And you can take your braille labels and you can actually line them up right inside those cells if you want to. And again, this is just an alignment frame to help you keep things aligned as you're creating graphics. When you go to emboss, this will not emboss out. It is just purely a visual on-screen element for the sake of helping you keep things aligned visually. And that is a braille grid type. So I suppose if you're doing lots of braille labels and things like that and you want to keep things all lined up nicely, that might be a useful one to use. You can click on the next one, which is a measurements grid. So same idea. This one, it will default to whatever unit of measurement you chose. Again, reference the previous episode where we went through the configuration wizard and we chose our units of measurements. If you didn't get a chance to do that and you're like, mine's still in centimeters or something, I want inches, you can go to settings and then general, and down in the bottom right hand corner you can switch your units of measurements to inches, pixels, millimeters, or centimeters. Anyway, or you can do it through the configuration wizard like I showed in the previous episode. All right. Now again, we are on a measurements grid. Mine is in inches, and it shows a kind of dotted lines, dotted like grid lines, I guess, if you will, every 1 inch, and solid, smaller 1/4 inch grid line boxes. Again, all just visually on the screen, purely for the sake of helping you keep things aligned. It will not emboss. And if you want no grid lines at all, you can click on either whichever grid line type you have selected, whether it be the braille grid or the measurements grid. Click on whichever one you currently have selected, and that will hide the alignment or grid altogether. All right, let me zoom out just a titch here. All right, after those couple different grid types, we have our line view and our dot view. So this is the dot view is the part I was kind of referencing when I was talking about print preview earlier. And so to show this, or how these two work, I'm going to draw out something. So I'll draw out a circle. Okay, so I draw out my circle. Now currently I have line view selected. So line view shows everything as print lines. Now of course we know when we print this out on a braille printer, it's not going to print. It's made up of braille dots, right? And so it's not actually going to be necessarily a solid line. It'll feel like a solid line, but it's really actually a line made out of a whole bunch of braille dots right next to each other. So print view, excuse me, or line view is really just showing me this as solid kind of printed lines. Then if I switch over to braille view, you will see now I actually see the individual braille dots that make up my circle. And again, these are accurate for your embosser model. If you print this out, it should look virtually identical to this. And now you can fully work in this line view or in this dot view, either one. I kind of prefer to work in the line view because the line view does color code some things that are useful. We will go into kind of what those color codes mean in more detail in future episodes. But for example, my circle here I drew out is color coded blue, which means it's an object. You don't have to worry about that too terribly much at the moment. We will dive into objects and different types of drawing elements in future episodes. But that blue helped me. In the dot view, or they just show up as black dots because they're all braille dots, right? And so I've kind of lost that slight kind of useful thing. But that being said, if you didn't really care whether it was an object or not, right? You just want to draw out a circle, who cares about the rest of it, right? Then by all means, you can fully work in the braille view, or there is no harm in that whatsoever. We can grab things, we can move them around, we can add new stuff, all while staying in the braille view. For the sake of the rest of these tutorials, you will probably see me work 99% of the time in the line view, and then switch to the dot view from time to time to kind of like maybe check my work and see how something embossed or how something is going to emboss. Maybe do a little cleanup if necessary, and then usually I switch back to line view and then I actually emboss it. Anyway, use these however you want, right? There is no right or wrong way to do this. My preference and what you will be seeing me do in the rest of this series is going to be primarily working in the line view and checking my work in a dot view. But if you want to do everything in dot view, you be my guest. There is zero harm in that. The only thing, again, that you might lose is some of the information that will be given to you by how something is color coded. But again, as you go through this tutorial, you'll see that even that is, there's not a ton of different stuff. Like there's not a billion different color codes, right? So you aren't even losing that much when you do that. So anyway, I will leave that at that. at that and kind of move on from there. Okay, so after our line view and our dot view, we then have what looks like a little kind of, again, little piece of paper icon with a folded corner on the top right with a little speaker icon on it, little speaker with sound waves coming out of it. And this is explore mode. So I'm really just going to talk about this really quick, and then I'm going to leave it at that. This is for another component, optional component, I should say, that you may or may not have. It's truthfully not my first recommendation, honestly. I think it sounds cooler than it actually really works. But TactileView has some other optional components that can go together with this software. The particular one that this works with is called the audio reading system. And I will give you just I'll try to keep it brief, description of how that works in case you're interested in checking it out or in case you have it. The audio reading system lets you create a tactile graphic of, whatever, it doesn't matter, whatever you're making your graphic of, and then you can use features inside of here to add audio labels to areas of that graphic. So I have a circle on my screen, so I'll use this as an example, but of course it doesn't have to be a circle. So I could add an audio label to this circle, and that whenever, and I'll explain this in more detail in just a second, whenever you press inside that circle, there's an audio label that plays back that says this is a circle, and you could have it be more information than that. It could say this is a circle that has a radius of 1 or something like that, right? I'm just making things up, but it can get as detailed as you could have a tactile graphic of a bird, and when you touch on the bird could chirp or something, like play back an audio file of that, or a speech synthesizer could read something or something like that. Anyway, so basically this audio reading system allows you to create tactile graphics with audio components to them, and the audio reading system is an extra piece of hardware that you get and you plug into your computer and you emboss out your graphic that you made in TactileView. You put this special graphic with these audio labels onto this little tablet, and there's a digital pen that you can use for exploring the graphic, and when you click the digital pen or touch to different things that have audio labels, those audio labels get played back to you. So it lets you create tactile graphics with the extra layer of audio attached. So it sounds pretty cool in theory. I think that it's not always as great as it seems, but it does work. And this explore mode is what you would use when you were exploring those tactile graphics with that audio read system that you'd made. Last couple quick things here. We have zoom in and zoom out buttons represented by a magnifying glass with a plus and a minus. And we also have zoom to full page, which is represented by a little magnifying glass with a little red box around a full page. And last but not least, we have TactileView 1 here, which is kind of a tab. If I go hit create new blank document here, you'll see now I have TactileView 1 and I have TactileView 2. TactileView 1 and 2 are just default names because I haven't changed them or saved them yet as with a certain name. But basically what I want to show you is that it's broken these out into tabs. And so I can have multiple, it can be more than 2, it can be a whole bunch if you wanted to, of tactile graphics open at the same time. And I can jump back and forth between them like they are tabs. And this can be really useful if you create a document with, maybe you create like a little document with templates of things that you use frequently. One I heard of is somebody created a template with a number line because they were doing so many number lines, and then they just saved a generic number line in a file on their computer. Then they opened that up every time they need to create a number line, and they copy and paste their number line that they created from that graphic into their new graphic, and so they could reuse it without creating a number line every time. So you can do that kind of thing, or you can just have multiple files you're working on open at the same time, or multiple files you're printing and so on, and jump back and forth around between them or copy and paste between them like they are tabs, and that is a really nifty feature. All right, with that wraps up our quick access toolbar. Although the video might not have been quick, that is our quick access toolbar. And so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here, and we'll see y'all in the next one.